Okay, so thank you very much for your invitation. So I will start the talk by defining these two settings, these two objects. So what is Kahan's Gaussian multiplicative chaos? So you had already something in the previous talk about this chaos. So it will somehow overlap. So we start with the two-dimensional free field. So the two-dimensional free field, informally, it is a field where the correlation, so this is a Gaussian field, for which the covariance is given by the logarithm of the distance. So if you want to be rigorous, so you have to put some test function, and you integrate your field with respect to the test function, and look, and this should be Gaussian, and you have the covariance which is given here. So technically, the Gaussian free field is defined up to a constant, an additive constant. So the test function should have integral 0. So if you want to get rid of this constant, you subtract the average on some domain. So for example, you take the unit circle, and then you get some renormalized Gaussian free field, and if you compute the covariance, you get this. Yeah, so this is the positive part of log of absolute value of x. Okay, so this is so you have this covariance, and in fact, what I will be interested in is the restriction to the circle. And if you restrict to the circle, you get the logarithmically correlated field on the unit circle, so whose covariance is log of 1 over the distance. So here we restrict to the circle, and we get, so the unit circle is denoted u, and I have a field xu on the unit circle. And in fact, I will, for normalization issue and consistency, I will multiply by square root of 2, and then I have a correlation, minus 2 covariance, minus 2 log of the distance. So this is my the Gaussian field I will start with. So formally, we can write the field in terms of independent complex Gaussian variables in this way. So I take IID complex Gaussians, and here I write this infinite sum and take the real part. So this is only formal because the series does not converge. But if you formally write G in this way and then formally compute the covariance, you recover the log of the distance. So here now I will smooth the field by taking the harmonic extension on the unit disk. So this is not the Gaussian free field on the unit disk. It is much smoother. And how do I do that? I just introduce some power of the distance to 0, and then my series is exponentially convergent. So this is also equivalent to convolve my field on the unit circle by the Poisson kernel. And I get a harmonic function with Gaussian on the unit disk. And so this is so G is a function. Gu on the unit circle is only a distribution because the covariance expands when x goes to 1. You have log of x minus 1. So the variance is not is infinite. So you don't have a function, but you have a distribution. And if you look carefully, you see that the distribution is in all negative Sobolev spaces. Okay, so this is a simulation. So Redash IB gave me this image, this picture. So near the unit circle, you have big fluctuations, and if you are more in the center, then you have smaller fluctuations. Yeah, the unit circle is, so this is something like that. Yeah. And the height gives the value of the field. So you can compute the convariance structure, you get some logarithmic expression, and in particular the variance is -2 log of 1 minus r square at distance r from the origin. So you see that it logarithmically diverges when you go to the unit circle. Everything is and so to define the Gaussian multiplicative chaos, you take this field, you exponentiate this Gaussian field, you divide, so here you divide by the expectation, in fact. So the expectation of that is 1. And here, so everything is explicit. So this is explicit. And okay, it appears in the work by Kahan and also in Liouville conformal field theory. So I'm not an expert, but okay, there are work by Rod Vargas, Miller Sheffield, and their students about this. So this measure. And so if we want to define the Gaussian multiplicative chaos, then what we do is that we let r goes to 1. So in fact, taking r smaller than 1 is some kind of smoothing the field, because it's okay. You convolve with the Poisson kernel. So we consider the limit when r goes to 1, and you get. So formally, this looks like this. But of course, this expression is not rigorous because the field is not a function. So you cannot a priori exponential this field. But if you take r smaller than 1 and r goes to 1, then you can give a meaning to this expression, and you get what is called the Gaussian multiplicative chaos. So if gamma is between 0 and 1, so there exists a limiting measure for GMC R gamma when R goes to 1. Yes. Yeah. So in fact, you can regularize in other ways, and it gives the same result. But here it's more convenient for this talk to take this precise regularization. And here, so in detail, you have L1 convergence if you take some smooth test function and look at the limit. So this is how you can define the GMC gamma for gamma smaller than 1. So if gamma is larger than or equal to 1, so if you remember the talk, the previous talk by Rémi Rod, then you remember that there is some threshold after what the measure is 0. So if you try to do the same construction for gamma larger than or equal to 1, you get the 0 measure. So yeah. So multiplicative, I suppose you take exponential. So when you, yeah, this is multiplicative. So density is multiplicative with respect to the field, and chaos maybe because it's a measure. You get a measure which is very irregular, very singular with respect to the Riemann measure. This is my explanation. Maybe there are some more technical explanation. I don't know. So for gamma, so for the supercritical case, gamma larger than or equal to 1, you have some problem by doing in this way. So for gamma equals 1, you can still get a non-trivial measure if you change the way to renormalize. So there are different constructions. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So gamma equals 1. So it depends on the normalization and also on the dimension, because in so it depends on the dimension. If you do the Gaussian logarithmically correlated field in different dimensions, you get different critical values, and you have also the question of normalizing G. Okay, so the 1 is the equivalent of the 2 of the previous talk. And so at the critical case, so there are several ways to define the chaos, and basically all the constructions agree. So there are all these authors. And the way to define quickly the critical chaos is that you take GMC gamma for gamma smaller than 1. You normalize by 1 minus gamma. If you don't do that, you get the zero measure. If you normalize, then you get some non-trivial measure. So I will call it GMC1. For gamma larger than 1, so this is a supercritical case. So there are several possible constructions which probably do not agree. So this is somehow an open question to know what is the right construction. Okay, so this is for the chaos. Now the circular bit ensemble. So the circular bit ensemble is defined by taking n points on the unit circle, and the probability density is given by the product of the mutual distances to the power beta. So C beta E with n points. And for beta equals 2, this corresponds to the spectrum of a uniform matrix on the unitary group. This is called this is called the circular unitary ensemble. So there are also random matrix models for other beta, in particular by Kilip and Nanciu. But they are less symmetric than for beta equals 2. And from that, we can consider the characteristic polynomial. So we take any matrix whose spectrums follow the C, and then we consider, so we normalize the characteristic polynomial in this way. So the value at 0 is equal to 1, and you can write it as a product of 1 minus z times the inverse of the point. Okay, so you have a nice expression. So what can we say about this characteristic polynomial? In fact, what happens is that the logarithmic of the characteristic polynomial will be close to a Gaussian field. So how is it possible? So first we consider the traces of powers of the matrix. So trace of UN. So UN is a matrix whose spectrum follows the C beta E. Then we consider trace of n to the k. And what happens is that there is a convergence to independent complex Gaussian variables if we take fixed powers. So if we take powers between 1 and some fixed number, capital K, then they jointly converge in law to independent Gaussian variables. And for beta equals 2, it's proven by Diaconis and Shashani in the 90s. And in the general case, Zhang and Matsumoto in the maybe 2011 or something like that. But in fact, there is a simpler proof than the proof by Zhang and Matsumoto. If so, you look at the book by MacDonald on symmetric functions, which has many things. And in fact, if you combine some results of this book, you get a short proof of this convergence to Gaussian. So quickly, so we take the trace of powers, so they can be written in this way, sum of the case power of the points. And then we can multiply, if you have a partition, the partition is given by a decreasing sequence. And then if you multiply the traces for exponents equal to these integers, you get some new symmetric function of the points. And then we can consider some scalar product on the symmetric polynomials in n variables by taking the following. So we take f of the points of the C beta E, conjugate of g of the points, and then we take the expectation with respect to the law of the C beta E. And this defines the scalar product. And there is a first fact, is that when n goes to infinity, the scalar product will tend to some other scalar product which has been defined before in the book by McDonald's, so the whole McDonald's scalar product, for which the p lambdas are orthogonal. And so the scalar product has some explicit form, like this. So if lambda equals mu, the L2 norm will be c beta of lambda, which is explicit. And if you look at the expression of c beta of lambda, in fact, you can interpret it as some moment of complex Gaussian variables. So here you have the multiplicity of k in the first partition, here in the second partition, and you have this product, and you take the expectation. So this is so when you take some moments. So when you take some moments, joint moments, it's equivalent to write some scalar product of p lambda times p mu, because here you have product of p lambda i's. So you have convergence of joint moments, and since the Gaussians are determined by the moments, you get convergence. Okay, but of course there are this fact one, which is highly non-trivial. Okay, so you have this convergence of traces to Gaussians, but now if you take the logarithm of the characteristic polynomial, you get, you can write it as a series with respect to the traces, and if you replace the traces by the limiting Gaussian variables, you get some Gaussian field. And so there is this result saying that inside the unit disk, the log of the characteristic polynomial tends to a Gaussian field, which is proportional to the field G. So this is the same field G as what I introduced with the chaos. Okay, because so here you are inside the unit disk, because if you are not inside the unit disk, you have problem of convergence of this series. And this is no longer true. You don't have a limiting distribution of the characteristic polynomial if you go beyond the unit disk. So on the unit circle, it's still true if you smooth, so if you take some test functions, or if you look at the convergence in the Sobolev space of negative index. So then we can construct. So in the chaos, we took exponential gamma times the field to construct a measure. So here we can imagine we take exponential gamma times the log of the characteristic polynomial, or equivalently a power of the characteristic polynomial as a density. And you can try to compare it to the chaos, and there is a result by Nicolas, Saxman and Webb, saying that if you take, so it's for beta equals 2, you take the characteristic polynomial to certain exponent, which should be subcritical, you renormalize by the expectation, then you have convergence in law to the Gaussian multiplicative chaos. So intuitively, it's not so surprising, because log of xn looks like g, so you can imagine that at the limit you get the same measure. But in fact, it's very difficult result, because it's on the unit disk. So inside the unit disk you have this convergence, but on the unit circle it's not really Gaussian anymore. So there is a work to ensure that somehow you can smooth the non-Gaussianity by taking the probability measure in this way. So just some remark of this result. So we don't know what happens for beta different from 2. So probably similar results should occur, but the techniques of Nicolas, Saxman, Webb are specific to the case beta equals 2. In particular, it uses Riemann-Hilbert and some determinantal structure of the CUE, which does not exist for general beta. And in the most recent paper with Reda Shaibi, So this is the paper I present here. We somehow modify the characteristic polynomial of the C beta E in order to couple the dimensions together and to get a strong convergence. Because here you have a convergence in law to the chaos when n goes to infinity. And in our result, we get a strong convergence, but with a different object. It's not exactly the characteristic polynomial. And with this convergence, we get some identity law I will state later in the talk. And this provides some expression of so the integral of f with respect to the chaos, and when f is a trigonometric polynomial. And this is an expression which doesn't need to pass to the limit as in the original definition of the chaos, because in the original definition we take r smaller than 1 and then r goes to 1. So we don't need in these expressions to pass to the limit. We have a direct, an explicit formula. So yeah, I will show you later in more detail. So how can we construct this modification? So the main tool we use is a theory of orthogonal polynomials on the unit circle. So abbreviated like OPUC, OPUC. So how do we construct orthogonal polynomials on the unit circle? So we start with a probability measure on the unit circle. Then we consider the L2 space with respect to this probability measure. And then we have the sequence of functions, 1, z, z squared, z cubed. And we apply Gram-Schmidt's procedure. And then, with the correct normalization, we get some monic orthogonal polynomials with respect to this measure. And this can be finite or infinite. So what happens is when the support of mu is finite, then L2 of mu is finite dimensional. So the sequence stops at some point. And it stops at phi m minus 1, where m is the number of points. And then we can define phi m as just product of z minus the points, so which is in fact equal to 0 in L2 of. And if you have an infinite support for the measure mu, then you get an infinite sequence of polynomials. And for convenience, we need also to introduce the phi stars, which are just the phi, but with reversing the coefficient and conjugating the coefficient. Okay, so some remarkable result is that you cannot get any sequence of monic polynomials. You need to follow some recursion, which is this one. So for any measure, probability measure, you get a sequence, alpha j, which is finite or infinite. All the alpha j's have modulus smaller than 1, except that the last one, if there is a last one, which has modulus 1. Such that, so you have this relationship giving phi n j plus 1 in terms of phi j. So this is called the Segur recursion. So this can be also, so this relation can be also written as a product of matrices. And so these coefficients alpha are called the Verblunsky coefficients. And what is remarkable is that with this Segur recursion, we can in fact recover the characteristic polynomial of the C beta E. So we can choose the alpha j's such that in law, some polynomial will be, so the some polynomial phi star n will be the characteristic polynomial of C beta E. So in more detail, this is the theorem. So we start with independent random variables, infinite sequence of independent random variables, rotationally invariant, so the phase is uniform between 0 and 2 pi. And the modulus So the square of the modulus is beta distributed with suitable parameters. So the law is written here. And we also consider an independent uniform random variable on the unit circle. From these alpha j's and eta, we can follow Seeger recursion and construct a sequence of polynomials, or two sequences of polynomials, phi j star. And then, so what do? We stop the sequence at n minus 1 and then do a last step of Seeger recursion with eta, and we get a polynomial xn in this way. And what happens is that xn has the same law as, your last polynomial has the same law as the characteristic polynomial of the C beta e. So you can recover C beta e from these beta variables alpha j and eta. No, everything is random. Because so the alpha j's are random because are independent with this distribution. Yes. Yeah. Once you know alpha and eta, then no extra randomness. So a remark is that this provides a way to define C beta En for all values of n on a single probability space. So there is a coupling of all the values of n, because you can take the same random sequence alpha j, the same eta, and then you cut at n minus 1 and use eta, and you can choose all values of n. So this is a coupling. Another thing is that, before I presented the way to go from the measure, probability measure mu, to the Verbinski coefficients. And in fact, this is a bijection. We can also, so if we choose some Verbinski coefficients, so either infinite sequence on the unit disk or finite sequence on the unit disk, and then a last element on the unit circle, then the sequence of Verbinski coefficient is associated to a unique probability measure. So you can go also from the Verbinski coefficients to the probability measure. So this is a bijective correspondence. So for example, if I start, so this is in fact the content, this gives meaning to the content of the theorem before. So we can start with these independent Verbinski coefficients. Then it corresponds to a unique probability measure, mu n beta. And the support of this measure has endpoints and follows the C beta e. So what we can look is also the infinite sequence. So instead of cutting at eta with eta, just take the infinite sequence. There is a probability measure associated to this sequence, and what can we say about this probability measure? So this is somehow a way to define some infinite dimensional version of the C beta e. So there is also continuity property. So the Verbinski map between the measures and the sequences of Verbinski coefficient is continuous. If you put some suitable topology, this is continuous in the two ways. So mu and beta should converge, almost surely converge to mu beta. Because if you look at the sequence of Verbinski coefficient, it is the same coefficients up to n minus 2, so the difference goes further and further in the sequence of Verbinski coefficient, so we can deduce that you have convergence of the measures. So the mu n beta converges to mu beta. And you can also cut the sequence in a different way. So instead of putting this eta on the unit circle at the end, you just let 0, 0, 0, 0. And if you do that, so this is a general result by Bernstein and Seeger, you get a measure whose density is proportional to modulus phi star to the power minus 2. Okay, this is for all sequences of Verbinski coefficient. It is like this. And this new measure, this mu tilde beta also converges to mu beta, because again it shares the same first Verbinski coefficients. So from that we have phi n star minus 2 divided by renormalized as a probability measure goes almost surely to mu beta. And phi star is strongly related to the characteristic polynomial, because you have this result by Kilip and Nanshu relating xn to phi star n minus 1. So somehow this result is quite similar, or it shares some feature with the result by Nicolas-Axmann-Webb. So we can ask, okay, what can we say about this measure mu beta? What is the law of this measure mu beta? So this is a question we can ask. So now I will give our main result in my last paper with Reda Shaibi. So the main result is that in fact mu beta is essentially the Gaussian multiplicative chaos. So now it is the statement of our main theorem. So the statement of the main theorem is the following. So I take beta larger than or equal to 2. And then gamma is square root of 2 over beta. So there is this relationship between beta in the random matrix world and gamma in the chaos world. And this is this relationship. And for beta larger than or equal to 2, gamma is smaller than or equal to 1, so it is subcritical or critical. So then we can choose the Verbinski coefficient random, independent with beta distribution and so on, so like in the result by Kilip and Nanshu. And then this defines the measure mu beta. So this measure mu beta cannot be exactly the Gaussian multiplicative chaos, because it is mu beta is a probability measure, and GMC is not a probability measure in general with the usual normalization. So what do? We multiply mu beta by some total mass, C0. We change the total mass. And the total mass is explicit. This is a certain function of beta and the sequence of Verbinski coefficients. So it's completely explicit. And if we do that, then the measure C0 mu beta has the same law as the GMC gamma. This is an identity in law. So in particular, if you don't like this C0, so what you can do is just you divide in sides by the total mass, and you deduce that mu beta itself has the same law as GMC gamma, renormalized as a probability measure. Yes? Okay. And our result, because of Bernstein-Seeger result, in fact, we can state also in the subcritical result our result as follows. So if we take phi n star to the minus 2, you renormalize by the expectation, and you take this as a density with respect to the uniform measure on the circle. Then this converges almost surely to this measure C0 mu beta. And this measure C0 mu beta is in law equal to the GMC gamma. So with this way to present the result, it looks like the result by Nicolas-Axmann-Webb. It is a similar form, but there are some differences. So what are the differences? First difference is that we have an almost sure convergence. So we have a coupling of all values of n. The other difference is that our exponent is rigid. This is minus 2. And this is so we really need -2 because of the general theory of orthogonal polynomials. So this -2 is also, you remark that it is negative, and in Nicola Saxman-Webb you have positive exponents. Another difference, so the exponent is rigid, but the beta is flexible. We have the choice to take any beta larger than 2, and in Nicola Saxman-Webb it's beta equals 2. Okay, of course it's not exactly the characteristic polynomial. Okay. So what can we say about the consequences of this result? So the first consequence is that we can couple the C beta E, in fact, for all beta larger than or equal to 2 and all n. We can couple everything together. How can we do that? So we can start with the field G, the Gaussian field G, and then we can construct the chaos from G for all values of gamma together between 0 and 1. So you get your GMC gamma for all gamma. Then from the GMC gamma, you normalize as a probability measure, and then you take the orthogonal polynomials with respect to GMC gamma, and then you deduce the Vrblunsky coefficient. And then you can cut the Vrblunsky coefficient, add some eta uniform on the unit circle, and then you get a new measure, and this measure has a support following the C beta En. So you have the full coupling of all beta larger than 2 and all n. And in some sense, so to be rigorous, we need a precise definition, so I don't give some precise definition like this, but C beta En can be constructed as some quadrature point of the G beta, the GMC gamma. So this is, you take some measure which has the same moments, the same first moment as the GMC gamma, and which is supported on endpoints, and you recover the C beta E in this way. Another consequence is an alternative proof of a conjecture by Fyodorov and Bouchot. So this conjecture has been proven by Guillaume Rémy in 2017, and with our result, we recover another proof, which is very different proof, in fact, of the same result. So why? Because the total mass of the chaos has the chaos has the same law as this measure. So the total mass has the same law as C0. So the total mass has the same law as this expression, and this expression is very nice. You can do quite easy computations because the alpha j squares are just beta variables. So you have a product of beta variables, and you can compute the moments, and you check that it matches the moments of this power of exponential random variable. And then you recover the result by Rémy. And you can go, in fact, further because you can express all the moments, at least in principle. So the moments in this sense, so we take, in fact, the Fourier coefficient of the GMC gamma. So here we define CK as, so here you take the chaos renormalized as a probability measure, and then you take the Fourier coefficients. They have expressions, so this is general in orthogonal polynomial theory. You have a general expressions of the Fourier coefficients in terms of the Vrblunsky coefficients. So C1 is alpha 0. So you have the first expressions here. So if you don't like this normalization, if you want really the chaos, you just multiply by the total mass, which has itself an explicit expression. And if you want general trigonometric polynomials as test function, you just take the linear combinations. So you have explicit expressions. These expressions are not so simple because you see already in the third Fourier coefficient it's pretty complicated, a little complicated. At least this is explicit. Another thing is that you can easily extend C0 mu beta to all values of beta. Because of the beta variables defining the Vrblinski coefficients, they make sense for all beta strictly positive. The value of C0 is also easily extendable up to a constant to all beta. And then this gives another candidate to a definition of the supercritical GMC. So the question would be, so we get an atomic measure also. So can we relate this construction to the previous construction? So this is a question we can ask. And other questions, so this is not very precise questions, but so first, can we, so there is a conjecture on the maximal modulus of the characteristic polynomial on the circle, conjecture by Fyodorov, Yari, Keating. So can we relate this chaos to this conjecture? Can our result help for potential solution of the conjecture, proof of the conjecture? Another thing is that C beta E is related to some algebraic structure. For example, we have the Jack polynomials, which are strict polynomials orthogonal with respect to C beta E. So can we relate also this structure to the GMC? Also, a remark is that for GMC, the critical exponent is for beta equals 2, and this corresponds exactly to the CUE. So, so that you have the special values in the two settings, and they correspond to the same beta. So is there some deep explanation on the fact that it is for the same values that you have a special case? And more generally, it seems to be some duality between, or there is some duality between beta and 4 over beta in random matrix and GMC points of view. So can we improve the understanding of this such duality? Okay, so thank you for your attention.